Welcome to the Wealth by Choice podcast. My name is Valerie Shira, and I'm a stay-at-home mom who turned entrepreneur. Each week, we bring you stories and wisdom from individuals who have broken the code to generating wealth. Thanks so much for being here with me today. Let's get started. All right, today we have with us Angel Williams. Angel has been involved in real estate investing her whole life, but she began her professional real estate investing journey in 2003. She is a co-founder of The Academy Presents and is managing partner of Lauren Capital LLC. Angel has experience in single-family rentals, residential multifamily rentals, and multifamily syndication, and oil and gas investing. Angel graduated from Baylor University in 2000 with a BBA in economics and in 2002 with an MS in economics. She's a mother to three daughters and one special needs son. Angel, welcome to Wealth by Choice. It's great to have you here today.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is going to be a lot of fun. I'm super excited.
Yeah. So I'm just saying real quick, I met you at a networking event. You host every Monday, and it's been phenomenal. I've been able to meet some really great people, make a lot of connections. I really appreciate all the effort that you have put into that. It's been great to attend that. But that's how we met. I got to know you a little bit better just through coming each week. And I wanted to have you on to hear more of your story, more of the choices that you made to get you where you are and kind of break it apart.
Okay.
So let's get started with the beginning. What kind of got you on the road to either real estate, because I know that's what you do, or just wanting more out of life, just basically not wanting the status quo?
Well, I think part of it is one, my personality. I really don't like people telling me what to do. And I started noticing that my daughters are the same way. So I literally have Angel 2.0, 3.0, and 4.0. And so when I get angry, when they're bucking up against me, I'm like, oh my God, I created a me. But I think just having that kind of a personality, I do question things. I don't just take things at face value. And my daughters are the same way. And so I think having that personality pushes you towards always looking for something that's just a little bit more. And I think, just watching my grandparents owned real estate when I was growing up. And so I saw they had W-2s also, but then they had that side hustle. And so I always saw real estate as just something that people do. It's just a normal thing that people do. And then my husband also grew up in a family that invested in real estate. And so it seemed like it was just, that's what we were supposed to do, is after we bought our first home, it would become our first rental. And then we went from there.
That's awesome. I wish more people grew up like that, in the sense that seeing that those cash flowing assets and realizing that it's not just about the W-2 income. That's just a piece of it. I mean, that's an important piece, a very important piece to it. But, there's a whole nother world out there, and I think a lot of people are just not aware of it. Was there a certain point that you decided we're going to do real estate too, or you just kind of, like you said, just after you sold or after you moved out of your house, you just kind of went into it?
So Jason and I have talked about this at length, and we do not remember actually having a conversation where we said, hey, this is going to be our first rental.
You just knew.
It just became our first rental. Like, the next thing we knew is he was interviewing for jobs. He just finished up his doctorate. He was interviewing for jobs. We knew we were moving. And once we had an actual job and a date, we started looking for someone to do the make ready. And we don't remember ever having a conversation where we discussed, are we going to sell, or is this going to be our first rental? It was just our first rental.
Wow.
That was like the next logical step for both of us. And it's weird that we never had a conversation about it.
Yeah, that's funny. Did you have like a mentor, or did you read any specific books, or was it kind of your parents taught you, your grandparents taught you? How did you learn what to do with real estate?
I think it was just, we knew that both of our families were doing it. And that it was, so like Jason and I came from different families. I thought we came from more of a similar kind of background. But it turns out that we're like solid middle class and he wasn't. But I think that also gives people, like, it should give everybody this piece of hope, because you don't have to be some multimillionaire to get into real estate. My grandparents weren't. I mean, my grandmother went through 8th grade. She wound up getting a GED and then became a librarian for the Army.
Wow.
My grandmother was in the Army and then he became a fireman. I mean, they were very average people. And they built a portfolio of a small trailer park, a quadplex of apartments, and I think they had 3 single family homes that they rented. And it provided a good retirement for them. They also had, of course, their federal and state retirements, but the real estate really helped keep my grandpa and grandma going as they got older.
That's something I want to point out too, and I've talked to others before about this. The typical American, they think they have to save up for retirement, and they get this big nest egg, and they sacrifice their whole life putting that together, and then when they retire, they eat it up, and they hope that it lasts until they're dead and gone. And that's the difference between real estate and your other typical, retirement investments, is that real estate is appreciating and that value is increasing as you're living off the cash flow. I think most people just don't realize that or think about it when they're planning for, the quote unquote typical retirement.
Yeah. No, it's a different way of thinking, and I don't know that my grandparents really thought about it that way. They got into real estate in the late 70s, early 80s, which, if you know anything about what was going on in the economy at that point in time, it's pretty similar to what we're probably going to be seeing soon, as far as like the tumultuousness of it. Late 70s, early 80s, as in the federal funds rate hit 20%. Paul Volcker was jacking up the federal funds rate in full-on percentage points. I mean, things are going crazy. And that was when they got involved. You were getting loans at double digits, and they still found a way to make that work for them and for them to be successful with it. They had that portfolio, let's see, late 70s, early 80s. My grandfather passed away about 5 years ago, and they still had the portfolio.
Wow, that's awesome. Now, does Jason still work? Do you still have your W-2? Have you pulled away from your W-2? Where are you guys at right now as far as that goes?
I left teaching in February of 2020.
Okay.
It was a pretty toxic environment, so I actually went out on FMLA. It was I couldn't handle the mental side of it anymore, and it had nothing to do with the kids. It had to do with the adults and the admins and the situation that I was in. So I left in February 2020, and then Jason left June 30th of this past summer.
Okay.
His company was relocating, and we weren't moving to Houston. So he's helping design their new lab. He's doing some consulting work for them, and other than that, he's full-time real estate.
Wow, okay. Did you have some frustrations or fears kind of pulling out of the W-2 and starting to rely on...
Every day.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I'm not even gonna lie. The other day, we're sitting there on the couch, and we get the Pellegrinos and Perrier waters because we like the sparkly water, and we get those delivered from Amazon. And we were like, "How much are we spending on these every month?" And it was, how much are we spending on groceries every month? Well, what about if we don't do fully organic anymore? Which we went organic for Anson, because we thought that maybe we needed to see what an organic diet would do for his special needs and see what it would do for his autism. And so then we were sitting there having this conversation of, well, maybe we should only feed him organic, or maybe we should see what we can cut back on. And then, I could tell that Jason was upset, and he was getting worried. And he's like, am I going to have to go back and get another W-2? Which I have had that conversation with him before also. Do I need to go back to teaching? And we just kind of sat down and we had to talk about it. And we're like, you know what? This is just a low spot. We're in a scary spot, but this is not permanent. This is a temporary thing. And we've got this situation where money should be coming in, but it's tough to budget when you get this big chunk of change. And when you see a $30,000 or $40,000 check, you don't think, oh, I need to divide this by 12. You think, woohoo, I got a big chunk of change. Let's go rent an RV and have a trip. It's hard to think of it in terms of, wait a second, I need to make this last. How do I make this last? And so it's not just having the entrepreneurial mindset and the entrepreneurial spirit. It's having this budgeting side too. And Jason he's the one of us that is more detail oriented. So he is the one that was saying, we need to cut back on the Pellegrinos. We need to cut back on the Perriers. We need to use our fridge and get water from the fridge. So I've got my bottle. I'm drinking water from the fridge. I'm not happy about it, but I am drinking water from the fridge. Because I'm also one of those people that I'm like, your $5 a day coffee habit is not making you poor.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you do the math on it, that's what, 5,000 a year, maybe. Probably not. It's probably more like 2,500. That's not making you poor, but it's the combination of things.
Right.
It's the 6 cases of Perrier we get every month. It's
Mm-hmm.
the, the $300 that we're spending on groceries every week.
Mm-hmm.
It's the extra diapers that we have to get for aunts and which we don't have a choice about.
Mm-hmm.
It's the cleaning materials. It's the cleaning lady. It's, what are we doing to reduce these costs? What are we doing to reduce gas costs, fuel
Mm-hmm.
costs? What are the things that we're doing to help us make it from big chunk of change to big chunk of change? Because honestly, real estate is amazing, but the ability to budget on the cash flow is not real easy.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that there's a couple things that a lot of people may not realize or they don't think about. And um, one of the things I love that Grant Cardone says, I follow Grant Cardone, I follow a lot of people. One of the things that I really like that he talks about is just spending your energy on expanding your income versus spending your energy on conserving what you have. And you do have to have both. You can't just blow through all your money, and that's something that I think a lot of the lower class, they get a paycheck, it all goes out, and they all either think it's necessary or, and a lot of it is, but maybe there are things that they can cut out that might not be necessary, but instead of spending so much energy coupon clipping, which I used to be a couponer years ago, I would coupon and save 50 cents on that and $1 on that. And that, I mean, so, you spend hours and hours and you save $20. What could you have done to make $20? And shifting that focus from conserving to expanding has made a big difference in our life and has helped me think outside the box. Think of, the W-2 that we're in, or which right now we're not, but the space that we're in, what can we do to expand? If you're in a W-2, can you get a raise? Can you get a bonus by producing more? Not just by asking for it, by producing more. Mm-hmm. There's always something that you can do, and it's just kind of shifting that focus towards expansion versus, just conserving what you have. So those are some fantastic points.
Well, and that was a conversation that Jason and I were having, was that this is temporary.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to get to a point where we're not having these same concerns.
Mm-hmm. And two, you do have to make sacrifices. I mean, if a lot of people don't, I don't want to say don't talk about those sacrifices, but they're there. Sometimes you'll see somebody just shoot to the top and you think, well, that was easy. Well, you weren't there day to day. You don't know what they actually went through. And so some of those kind of hidden struggles get overlooked and people think it's easy. And then when they hit something that's hard, they think, what am I doing wrong? Well, you may not be doing anything wrong. It may just be hard for a period. And so, yeah, you're right on. That's a fantastic view of the situation, and that other people could really benefit from hearing that. I appreciate you sharing that.
Absolutely.
Now, I want to say, as far as mindset shifts, so that was really a big one that we just talked about. Are there any other ones that you've kind of had throughout the years that you feel like have really helped you change or expand or grow, that kind of, maybe come to mind?
There's been a few. I don't remember the exact day it happened, but I know the exact day I realized it happened. And that was when I went from thinking small to no longer thinking small. A friend of mine, our girls were in throws together. They threw shot put together. I was their coach. And she found this throws clinic. And she got online. She's like, it doesn't matter. It's sold out. Like, what do you mean it's sold out? I say we show up. It's going to be a whole lot harder for them to say no to our face. She's like, no, I don't want to drive down there. And then, we drive 2.5 hours and we do wear and tear on cars and spend money on gas. I'm like, look, I'll pay for the gas. Yes, we're taking your van, but I'll pay for the gas. And worst case scenario, they say no, and we go shop at the Dulles Clearance Center. This is not a zero-sum game. We're not going to totally lose out. And so we showed up, and it turned out that their funnel was broken. And so they had plenty of places, and we were able to buy our spot that day. But I think about, in the back of my mind, I was like, okay, if they're sold out, if they tell us no, yeah, we're going to go shopping at the Dulles Clearance Center, but then we're going to contact them and see if they'll come to our town and do a clinic. Mm-hmm. And it was thinking about, I think about what she said about, oh, they're sold out. We're not going to go. And me saying, yeah, we're going to go. It's a 2.5 hour drive. We're going to go. And worst case scenario, we go shopping at the Dealers Clearance Center, and then we ask them to come to us. And that was the day I realized that I no longer had that. I guess really it was the fixed mindset of I've been told no, therefore the answer is no.
Right.
But at the same time, I've never been the person that really accepts no, even when I was little. I don't accept no very often. Maybe after I've been waiting at a banker's office for 2 hours, which is a whole other story. Uh, and I still didn't say no. It was just a not now. But that day really was just an example to me that not only did I not take no for an answer, but I also thought of a solution should the answer be no. So that was a big mindset change. And then some of the other mindset changes that I'm working on is I don't know that I will ever think that anything I'm doing is a big deal. And a friend of mine the other day was like, Angel, you just started a nationwide mastermind. I'm like, so? He's like, well, I'm in a few small masterminds, but you just started a nationwide mastermind. I've never done anything like that. And this is somebody I look up to that I feel like is doing so much more than I will ever do. And for him to say that to me just really caught me off guard, because I don't think I'm doing anything extraordinary or doing anything different from anybody else. And so that's something that I need to work on in my mindset, is to realize that even though maybe in my peer group I'm not doing anything extraordinary, I'm not doing anything anybody else isn't doing, but maybe against, if I'm thinking about who I was before, or if I'm thinking about who I was amongst my teacher friends, or who I was in all these other situations, I'm leaps and bounds beyond what I used to be.
Right.
So I am doing extraordinary things compared to who I used to be. And that should be considered a win for me. And mindset, I'm just not there.
Yeah.
So that's something I need to work on for sure.
Yeah, and they talk about that a lot in the it's not the who, not how, the other one, the gap and the gain. And that concept really changed me too, because we're in a lot of masterminds, and we're with people who are miles in front of us, and sometimes I would catch myself feeling frustrated with myself. And, I would talk to Jonathan and be like, why am I not making more progress? Why am I not here? Why am I not doing that? And that book really helped me turn around and look behind me. And when I did that, I was like, okay, wow, I've actually come a long way. I mean, you think about, a year ago or even 6 months ago, I'm doing things that I wouldn't have even considered then. So, the progress is there. It's just sometimes when you're comparing yourself to people who are so far ahead, you can't see that you expect to gain on them, but they're also improving. Where the real question is, are you improving on yourself? You can really only compare yourself to where you were yesterday.
Yeah.
And I don't remember if it was that book or a different one that said, if you're not embarrassed at who you were 6 months ago, you're not growing enough. And I really like that. And I'm always trying to challenge myself, read, learn. I'm always taking courses, trying to grow and expand myself. This way, every 6 months I can look back and be like, oh yeah, I've definitely improved, I've definitely grown, and I am making progress.
No, that's the only, I don't like the idea of looking back 6 months ago and being embarrassed about who you were. Maybe being embarrassed by lack of progress, but who I was 6 months ago is the reason that I am who I am today.
Sure.
And who I was a year ago, 2 years ago, who I was in college, I'm embarrassed about that one. But who I was in college, who I was in high school, all of the things I went through have made me who I am today. And so I don't know that I would be embarrassed, but I would definitely be able to look back and say, man, 6 months ago, I could have been where I am today had I just quit feeling sorry for myself, or had I been more excited to fulfill my commitments.
Yeah.
Had I been more present, or had I been pushing 110% instead of 75. There's those things that I think about. But I don't look back on it and necessarily get embarrassed. I just,
Yeah, I think I think the whole point of it was to look back and see where you were and where you are today, and I think that's kind of what I've taken from it, and I really like the concept, and I definitely feel like it has helped me really focus on even short-term gains. Instead of just you want to be here and you started out here, and it's a long journey, it's a lifelong journey, and sometimes if I get focused on that, it may be a little harder to see the improvement. Sometimes it takes a year to get some traction. And so looking at it a little bit smaller, bite size, to me is a little helps it to be a little more tangible. But
Yeah, no, I guess I'm such a kick myself while I'm down kind of person
I see.
that I really have to be careful of how I think of things,
Sure.
because I could see myself getting down on myself and being like, "Oh my God, I wasn't just an embarrassment 6 months ago. I'm an embarrassment today." And so I could see myself kicking myself while I'm down,
Yeah.
because that's what I do internally.
Yeah. And
And so that's the only reason why I try and be careful about the way things are coming into my head, because they embed themselves there, and I'm super hard on myself.
well, it's very good that you're aware of that. And, being aware of it helps you be able to adapt and make choices that can, be beneficial. Um, is there anything that you would maybe do looking back that you would either do differently, or you feel like if you were to advise somebody who's starting out, maybe that you would give them some advice that would be different to things that you had done?
Um, Maybe not be so wild and carefree in college, but again, if I hadn't been wild and carefree, I wouldn't have gained the street smarts that I have now.
Sure.
But at the same time, like when I've given advice to friends of mine, I have some teacher friends that they're talking about emptying out the retirement accounts, or they're talking about selling their house and buying a bigger house. And like one friend, he wound up, him and his partner split up, and so he's like, I want to sell this house. My fiance now wants me to make a clean break. And I was like, well, that's fine, but can't you just buy your partner out and keep the house? And he was like, well, I just don't think I can get the right rent. And I'm like, are you following the 1% rule? And so I'm like trying to give him advice to get him, because it's a house in Arlington. I mean, he's in the DFW area. It's a nice house. I've been there. And I feel like they could rent it out for way above what they think they can. And so that's my advice. But then his fiance is like, no, we're just going to sell it, because you've got people that don't understand, like, yes, it's going to be expensive today. Yes, it's going to be hard until you get a renter in there. Yes, it's going to be difficult, but man, pick your hard, because it's going to continue to cash flow month after month after month. And even if you have a skip or you have a down month, over time, the trend is up.
Yeah.
You don't want to get rid of this house, because you're never going to save up enough to get another one.
I love what you just said. Pick your heart. That is something that is really big. I mean, people say, I don't want to sacrifice now. I don't want to do that. I'm not willing to, you know, instead of work 9 to 5, work 5 to 9. I'm not willing to do that. That's hard. But what we don't think about is doing that for a few years is not as hard as doing, the W-2 and stressing about money until the day you die. To me, that is hard. So you're right. I love that. Pick your heart. I'm going to remember that one.
Well, I'm sure it came from somewhere, because Jason said it one day, and I was like, I'm gonna remember that. And
That's
he
a good
he
one.
listens to podcasts and reads tons of books, and
Are there
so
any?
I'm
Are
I'm
there?
sure it came from somewhere.
Sure. Are there any other things you can think of off the top of your head that you feel like stop people from success, from becoming successful?
We get in our own way. Um, you know, I think people think I'm too young, I'm too old, I'm too dumb. I don't know enough about this subject. I'm ignorant. And then even after you educate yourself, you look at people that are killing it in the space, and it's that monster, that judge or that comparison monster that says, "Oh, I could never do what they're doing," without realizing that they started with one house too, or
Right.
they started with two houses, or they started with a duplex or a quad. Maybe they had a 10 unit, but they started somewhere too. And so it doesn't matter how old you are or how young you are. I think about like the Donis brothers. They were like 18 years old when they got started, and they're doing amazing things. And so you just can't think you're too old or you're too young, or that you're just dumb or ignorant, or you can't educate yourself. There's tons of resources out there. There's tons of people out there that want to help. And so just don't tell yourself you can't do it, because what is it? Is it Ford? If you tell yourself you can or you can't, you're right.
Yep. Very true.
So just don't quit telling yourself you can't do it, because the longer you tell yourself you can't, you won't.
Exactly. Now, are there specific books that you've read that really stand out? I always love to ask that question because everybody's different. There's a few common ones, of course, but anything specific come to mind?
Um, So probably my favorite book ever was Positive Intelligence.
Okay.
And that's because it talks about like the saboteurs
Mm-hmm.
and the things that are in your head or are a part of you that really make you who you are. It's the voices that talk to you. And the first one is the judge. Everybody has the judge. We all sit back and look at how other people are doing things and go, I wouldn't do it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh, why are they doing it like that?
Mm-hmm.
We all do that.
Right, right.
So everybody does that. But then there's these other ones. Like I have hyperachiever. That does not mean that I'm like this type A personality that does everything with perfection. It means that I don't find my worth from within myself. I find my worth from what I do for others and how that is viewed.
Okay.
So I have to be doing things for other people before I find value in myself. And that one is hard. And then another of my saboteurs is the restless. And so I always have to be doing something. And then I only find value when I'm doing things for people. And so if I'm not doing something for someone, then I lose all value in my own head.
Mm-hmm.
And so between those two, I have to constantly be thinking, what of this is true and what of this is a saboteur. And so that was just a really awesome book because it helped me get a little bit of insight into the voices that I hear, because we all have voices in our head, and realizing which of those voices I need to give consideration to and which ones I just need to let go on through my head. Because telling myself that I'm worthless because I'm not at the PTF meeting, or because I quit being the PTO treasurer, or because I quit doing this at church, or because I quit being a religious education teacher, or because I quit doing this or quit doing that. None of those things devalued me, even though in my head I thought they did. Mm-hmm. So it's realizing that, wait, I need to dismiss that thought. That's not where my value lies. And so that, for me, the book was really good in helping me realize those things about myself so that I have a better idea of what actually matters in my head and not the things that are just super loud.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I think that's the first I've had that suggestion. That's good. That's a really good book. I'll have to check it out. All right, so moving forward, what are your plans? Do you have any big plans moving forward for either 2023 or the next few years?
So we're hoping to pick up a couple more properties this year. Capital's a little harder to come by right now. Mm-hmm. So we're working on that piece of it. I'm hoping to. I've got some ideas for a book on capital raising. But again, there's that voice in my head that's like, "Hi, y'all have been successful twice. There's other people out there that have been successful 10, 20, 30 times. Why do you think what you have to say is anything better than what they're doing?" So that's that voice that's in my head telling me, "Oh yeah, you're not good enough." Mm-hmm. But I would like to make some headway on that. Mm-hmm. I also would like to see us do some kind of a bus tour or something here in our hometown to take our investors around to see the properties that they've invested in. And we've got a little winery here that we'd like to go to, maybe have a little catered meal and do something here that could be really fun. And it was Clive Davis is the one that I saw do it. And so I got my inspiration from him. And he's like, "Angel, we're speaking it into being. You are going to do your bus tour in 2023. Awesome. So the next time I hear from you, it's going to be because you're inviting me on your bus tour."
That's awesome. Well, hey, I really appreciate you sharing with me today, sharing your story, sharing your struggles and your successes, and just the advice that you've learned along the way. Is there any
Absolutely.
specific way that people can get in touch with you if they'd like to reach out, get to know you better, come to your meetup?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a Facebook group called the REI Rocks Community. On LinkedIn, I'm Angel Williams, and I do respond to all of my DMs. And we've got a lot of content that we're pushing out in both the Facebook group and on LinkedIn. We've also got our Marvelous Mondays meetup. So I'll be sure to get those links to you so that you can put them in the show notes.
All right. Well, sounds good. Well, thanks so much, Angel, for joining us. I hope you have a fantastic week. Thank you for joining us today. I'm so grateful that you took the time to invest in yourself and to learn with me today. If you're interested in joining a group of like-minded people, I want to personally invite you to our free networking group where you can make connections and build relationships with people who are working together to generate wealth. Just click the link that is included in the show notes, and I hope to see you there.